All right, coming up, I'm going to give you some tips on things that I'm seeing on social media that we need to worry about, some new changes, some new iterations. I'm going to talk a little bit about pricing, and then I'm going to tease one of these new series that I'm doing, which is totally awesome, and I think you guys will love seeing. So let me get everything going, and then as usual, as I do in these series all the time, if you've got questions, all you have to do is leave a comment. Have questions, leave a comment. I got to pin this. Have questions, leave a comment, and I will answer live. All right. I'm fired up about this right now because I'm going to teach you guys some things that you have not probably aware of in terms of the socials. And is very, very important. And I'm noticing this behavior, by the way, at a macro before we go into like this micro of Instagram. They're all copying each other almost verbatim. What do I mean by that? TikTok is usually the leader. Okay. Then Instagram will steal what TikTok's doing. And then YouTube and formerly Twitter, now X, are not far behind. Okay. And one of these is this notion of the chronological timeline. Okay. Meaning we used to log into the social media sites. And do I have this video? By the way, I've got to get this video up. I've got the wrong one. So I'm going to pull this up when I'm talking about it. But we used to be in this world where you would log in, okay? You would log in to the various different social sites, and you would be presented, for the most part, with what's chronologically happened since you logged on, or very, very before you logged on, not like many, many hours earlier, okay? And this is driving people nuts that their feeds are no longer chronological. And what do I mean by that? So I want to explain, like, it manifests itself extremely frustrating for me personally. Okay, but there's good news in this. When I see something on Twitter X is my primary social network, the one I like the most. Anyway, get over it. I go on there and someone's like, I'm going live in 20 minutes and I want to watch it. And then I look at the timestamp on the tweet and it's like 8 hours old. And I'm like, why are they showing me this thing that's 8 hours old? And so here's what Mosseri said this on this recently. He's the head of Instagram. And so we listen to him for indications of what's going on in social media world.
Scott asks about reach and chronological feed. On reach, we want to connect your content with people who are interested in that content, because then you'll be happier, they'll be happier, and our business will do better. But people's interests change. Sometimes they don't log on to Instagram in a given day, and sometimes there's just a lot of competition. And a chronological feed, you have that option. We want to make sure that's an option. But if we make it the default, or if we make it sticky for everybody, what'll happen is that people will use Instagram less and less. And not only would be that bad for our business, but it'll also be bad for your reach over time.
So that's really indicative of what's going on. The fact that when you post something, okay, that doesn't mean everyone's going to see it just then. If the post does well, it might show this to people 8 hours later, a day later, 3 days later, 5 days later. It's really up to them when to show it. And so this is somewhat frustrating maybe for our own personal consumption habits, but this is absolutely awesome for you guys because it means just post. Don't worry about what time you're posting. Don't worry if it's a good time or a bad time. Just post the thing, okay? You can post the thing, and if you get no action on the thing at all, go delete the thing and then post it again at a more opportune time. That's tip number one. But number two, because they're not doing a chronological feed anymore by default, any of them, when you post is less time sensitive. So it's just really an encouragement to know that post, see what happens. If it gets good reach, it gets good traction, people might be seeing it for the next 1 or 2 or 3 days. Okay. It's annoying in a news context, but for you guys trying to show and tease your creative things, it's absolutely awesome. So that's tip number one. Things are not going chronological anymore on the socials. Your takeaway from this needs to be just post when you can post. Don't worry about anything else, which is great news because then you don't have to like, oh, what's the best time of day? It's not convenient for me right now. I've got my kids such and such. Don't worry about it. Just post the thing and see how it does. It's very easy to take a post down and then repost it if it didn't get enough action the first time around. That's tip number one. Tip number two, and I see a lot of you guys falling into this trap, okay? What do I mean by that? I'm going to show a couple of videos, perfect examples. These are ones my team got from customers. But this is Deborah Bruner Studio. You know, your typical piece of content, which is great, you know, time-lapse painting. But you notice she's watermarked it here in the upper left-hand corner. This might be hard to see on Instagram, but she's got her logo inside the video in the upper left-hand corner, it says Deborah Bruner Studio, okay? You got to stop doing that. You guys have to stop doing that. The iteration that everyone's used to seeing is like when you make something on TikTok and then you try to come and post it on Instagram, and the little TikTok logo here is bouncing around from one portion of the frame to another portion of the frame. And you got to stop with this. We have to stop using logos when we're posting on Instagram. And the reason is, I'll get to this here where you talk
unconnected is a negative.
Generally,
it will get content is watermarked with a logo from another brand, regardless of what that watermark. But yes, if your content is watermarked with a logo from another brand, regardless of what that brand is, generally it will get less.
So what he's saying is it doesn't matter if the brand is TikTok's, which we are definitely not going to show to anyone, or if the logo is your logo personally, or if it's the logo of a store you're trying to give a shout out to, or anything imaginable. We have to stop with the logos in their content. The minute that you show that, Instagram goes, there's a logo in here. I don't like it. I'm gonna show it to less people.
Unconnected distribution. So it'll be less likely to be shown to accounts that you do not follow. We hear regularly this is a negative experience, and so it's factored into the ranking.
So to clarify too what he's saying here, like, look, if you're filming something in the background and there's a t-shirt logo, Salty Crew in my case, or like Nike, it's not going to nail you for that. But if you insert a logo into your video, into your creation, into what you're making, a logo of any kind, they're not going to show that to anybody unless they follow you. So you're going to get significantly less reach when you do something that brings a logo from somewhere else, whether you placed it on there, whether it came from TikTok, whether you saved it on Instagram and took that to TikTok, whether it doesn't matter, whatever it is. So you got to stop with the logos. You could still post with the logo. Just know that it's not going to be shown to anybody that doesn't follow you, and all of you guys are looking to grow. So you want to avoid that situation like the plague. It's just not good for business. So don't watermark your social media content. I think you should not watermark your images personally at all, because the way the things work today, like you can take a watermark off of anything. Like the AI software can do it in 2 seconds. Like Photoshop does a great job at it. So you have to be very, very careful. Okay. You have to be very, very careful with that. I don't want you guys doing that unless you feel like you really, really need to. So don't watermark your stuff. Okay. Very important. Next, I found this video when I was, I can talk about hashtags. Hashtags are no longer important, by the way. Hashtags have like essentially gone the way of the dodo bird. You can put in 1 or 2 or 3 if you want. I'm getting a question about hashtags. You can put in 1 or 2 or 3 if you want. But first of all, let me put it this way with hashtags, and I want to settle this once and for all. No one knows if they work or if they don't. Okay, no one knows if they work or if they don't. So even the creator, even the platform head, Mosseri, came out and was like, hashtags. He goes, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You don't need to worry about it. They're not as important as they used to be. So look, stop spending as much time on hashtags. They're just not as important as you think they are. If you want to put in a couple, 1 or 2 or 3 that are relevant and it's easy, great. If you don't, you can ignore them utterly, totally, and completely, because it's just not going to move the needle. It's just not. Like, especially there was a time when everyone was like, hashtags, hashtags, hashtags. I just don't even believe in it, period, because even if you put in a hashtag and it worked, okay, you can't prove it. You don't know. You don't have any data that says it worked. So why even mess with it? It doesn't matter. Okay, that's a good question. So what about adding a logo in a carousel as part of one of the pictures, or having it shown as a sticker? Sticker, different ballgame entirely. You can use stickers all day long, BCPL. Just do not put the logo in the work itself. Don't do it. And I mean, and again, to clarify this, like, if you're filming yourself painting and you're in your shop, or you're filming yourself and you're photographing and you're in a shop and the logo's on the wall in the background, it's not going to ding you for that. But it is going to ding you if in post-production you put the logo on top of the image, right? And it's showing clear as day. Like, they're going to ding you on that. So no identifiable logos. And my guess is the algorithm is good at this, probably too good at this. So it'll probably even ding you if there's text, like, this thing that I just had showing, art marketing tips. In fact, I'm breaking my own rules right now because I just looked at the background. Like, look, I'll show it to you guys quickly.
Scott asks about reach in chronological.
That's not really working. I can't show it. But anyway, I got to stop doing it too. So it's just a reminder, like, don't do it. It's not worth it. If you need to do branding, or if you need to mention someone else, throw it in the description, and they're not going to have any problems throwing it in the description. Okay. Got those questions. I want to shift gears towards pricing. All right. I've lectured ad nauseum on pricing, and I love talking about pricing. And by the way, I have a really, really good guide on pricing that teaches you how to price your art. If anybody needs that and you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, you can leave the comment with the word pricing, and I'll send it to your IM or your IGDM box. But one of the beautiful things about pricing and the way that I explain it, and I want to explain it succinctly, and then I want to use this example that I found from a car dealership, a Rolls-Royce dealership, where they're talking about it. But what's the key to pricing? Okay, 0 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 plus. Non-wall art is a part of the lineup. Okay, the non-wall art we can table for the time being, but the pricing, the key with the pricing, you guys, and having the range 0 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 plus. There's a number of different keys, and I go over that in the guide. And I see many of you are commenting. Awesome, I'm going to send it to you. But one of the keys when you have the range of pricing is it utterly, totally, and completely protects you guys from people that are trying to negotiate, trying to lowball, trying to beat you up on price. Okay, and this notion of having a range of pricing, especially when you don't have a range of pricing, and let's say, just to give it some teeth, you've got non-wall art and you have small prints from $0 to $100. Maybe you have a photo book in there. And then from 100 to 1,000, you have your small prints getting into your bigger prints. And then that's 0 to 1,000. 1,000 plus, you start on your limited editions and your originals go to $5,000, let's just say. Well, if I'm interested in one of your originals and I'm looking at it, maybe you're in a booth, or maybe I'm talking to you on the phone, or I'm DMing you on Instagram, and I'm like, I'm really interested in that original. I love it. Would you take $1,200 for it? Normally, that is an extremely deflating situation for an artist, especially when you don't have a range, because you're like, how could you say that to me? Do you know how much time I spent on that thing? You're trying to give me $1,200 for something that I'm selling $5,000. How dare you, right? But when you have a range, it completely fixes this problem for you, because what you're able to say to that person that just offered you $1,200 on a $5,000 original is like, actually, that one's not in your budget, but let me show you what is. Okay. And on the face of it, this just works, period. All right. Because sometimes people come in and they don't have the basis for comparison. Like when you just have originals starting at 5,000 and you don't have the limited editions, let's say at $1,200, like they don't know how to compare the original to anything else. They think you just made this price up because there's no ladder that steps them up to that value on the originals. But when you have the ladder, when you have this range of pricing, they have the basis of comparison. So this was a really strong pricing strategy for that rule alone, but there's even more to it. And I love this. So I just want to play this to wrap up my talk on pricing.
A Rolls-Royce dealership about this particular gentleman that's passed away that had a Rolls-Royce dealership, done very, very well. A customer comes in to an office and sees into the showroom and sees a Rolls-Royce. Their secretary comes and gets this particular owner out, says, oh, there's someone that would like to buy this Rolls-Royce. Anyway, so he goes out, sees the particular customer, and the customer says, look, you know, I see it's up here for, I'm making the numbers up, 200,000. What if I give you 180,000 for it right now in cash?
See, how many times has that happened to you guys with art, where they try to lowball you right out of the gates?
And so the owner of the dealership could go, yeah, well, I'll do that. But then he's just branded, oh, I'll always do a deal, I'll always do that. What he says, well, I can't sell you that one, but for 180,000, I've got a Jaguar over there that's more within your budget. And I just love this little story. Anyway, the bloke paid the 200,000 and took the Rolls Royce because he didn't want to be put down.
Yeah,
that he couldn't afford it. And that little story there is a lot of what happens with small to medium sized enterprises.
It's powerful, and it absolutely works. And the thing with the price range, you guys, like when you have the lower items in your lineup, to make them understand where this $1,200 offer, to use my earlier example, why it won't go to the 5,000, like that's too expensive. Yes, you let them land in their range, but also it's kind of a little bit of a dig, right? Like, you can't afford that one, but let me show you some ones that are. It's essentially you taking away what they want and then giving them something else, and nobody likes having that rug pulled on them. So even if you're someone that never negotiates, and you know, there's cases for negotiating, cases against. I'm super pro negotiation. I think it's part of more art sales than not, but some of you guys don't want to negotiate at all, and that's great. If you don't have something in your lineup that's lower priced than what they're after, you've got nowhere to move them to. You can't deploy this technique. You can't deploy this tactic, which is why having the range of pricing is so important. It's not about a magical formula on how to price your art. It's about having the range of pricing. When you do, you're setting yourself up to win in just about any situation, which I think is very, very, very important. Very important. Okay, I've got one final thing. I've been doing this series of artist interviews, and it's been absolutely awesome. And I did one recently. It was a live broadcast, but I didn't save it, so I don't have anywhere where I can send it to you guys. But absolutely amazing. I did this tour
guys.
with this customer. John is he's John Lowry. He's got this art gallery, okay, in this place called Round Top in Texas, okay, population 91 people in Round Top, Texas, and he's doing several high six figures a year out of this gallery, okay, and I did an interview with him where he's literally like showing off the gallery. He's walking through, showing off all the various different pieces he has in here, okay, and this all goes directly back to the pricing, because you go on the tour of this guy's gallery. And he has it on an art storefront site too, obviously. But you go through the tour of this guy's gallery, and he's got all the range of pricing covered. He's got mugs and magnets and greeting cards in smaller items and clothing, such that if you don't have the money to spend on a big expensive original, and this part now that I'm showing you is like his actual originals gallery. He's got a different portion of the store that's just the originals gallery. But if you don't have the range of pricing, you just don't have all the bases covered. So this was a wonderful interview. I'm going to start publishing it on the podcast soon. If you don't subscribe to the podcast, you really do need to subscribe to the podcast. We're about to put this thing through like a total rebrand. Here, I'll show it to you. I'll show what it looks like. We're about to put this thing through a total rebrand and some expansion of what we're doing in terms of content on it. And to find it currently, it's just called the Art Marketing Podcast. Here, I've got it. I got to pull the thing up on the screen. Where did it go? There it is. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. All you have to do is search the Art Marketing Podcast. Highly recommend you subscribe to this because we have some incredible content that's coming. And we're also upgrading the video capabilities of it. So every episode is a video episode. So I don't know if Apple Podcast does that, but certainly Spotify does. But it'll be on YouTube too if you want to watch it. And this one where I do the whole tour of John's studio is absolutely insane. Like, you know, you literally won't believe this. And I was showing this to my team today, which is so funny. But we started the interview, and at the end of the interview, he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm the only one here in the shop today. So just to let you know, if some folks come in, you know, I might need to leave and go deal with them." And he's like, "I want to show you how I greet people, and watch how funny this is." It's just awesome. Yeah, let's see.
Howdy. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm doing a video conference, and I'm like, well, I got to tell people what's happening. So welcome to Humble Donkey.
All right. Hey.
Have y'all been here before?
No.
Well, first time. So I'm John. I'm the artist. We have 2 floors of fun. Stairs are that way. We have free wine and beer that way. If you've seen apparel you like, we got a dressing room over there. And we have jewelry here. There's no spending limit. So have fun and let me know if you have any questions.
John, that was absolutely. And I just realized I'm wearing the same sweatshirt that I was wearing that day. Anyway, very, very good stuff. So if you guys haven't subscribed, highly recommend you do. It's also in the link tree on Instagram, or you can just Google the Art Marketing Podcast and find it. One of the things that we've not done a good enough job on is like showing like the sheer width and breadth of customers that we have and the different ways that they go about monetizing their creative talent and what revenue sources are working for them. But I'll tell you, this notion of the artist-owned gallery is really starting to gain in prominence. I'm seeing more and more artists take the step, and I think in John's case, he started out, the rent on the first place that he had was, I think he said, $350 a month in this tiny town in Texas. And then the second, and it's a tiny town that's like a, you know, it has some juice to it because there's like antique fairs there and stuff. But the place he's in now, 2 stories, all that retail space. He's got probably like 300 of his own pieces in there between prints and originals, maybe more than that. He probably has 1,000 of his pieces. It really is an incredible way, you know, to contemplate approaching your business. And even if you're not ready to do it right now, like, what are the steps that I could take now to potentially have my own gallery, right? Where people can come in, where there is potentially foot traffic, and what would that look like, right? And it doesn't need to be in the art gallery portion of town either, right? Like you pair it next to a brewery, or you pair it next to a restaurant and a bar where people are waiting, and all of a sudden you can have daily foot traffic into, you know, something representative as your gallery. So I know it's not attainable for everyone. I know it's hard. I know it represents a huge human resources challenge, right? Like, how do you have somebody working the gallery all day? But in terms of the revenue potential, you know, and I think John's, I mean, he's got to be clearing $60,000 or $70,000 a month. Like, I think it's more attainable than you guys think it is. I really do. And I also think like multiple artists could potentially team up on a place, or you could negotiate with the landlord and do a pop-up for like 2 months and say, I don't know if this is going to make it, but I want to give it a shot. I'll take care of the spot, you know, and go for it. And especially with like how depressed, you know, the economy is in terms of real estate right now. That's, you know, I know it's still expensive, but I'm seeing it pop up more and more. And my job is just to say like, hey, here are some different revenue models that really seem to be working for our customers. And I think that's really, really exciting. So we will continue telling the stories, continue talking about the tactical to get that all done. Definitely subscribe to the podcast, because I'm going to be releasing all of these episodes on there. I've done like 9 of them, and I have like another 10 on my calendar. My team's just throwing them on my calendar like crazy. So going to start interviewing artists and creatives of every single solitary stripe, multiple mediums. Yes, photographers, of course. The last one I did was 2 artists ago was a fabric artist. So it's really, really fascinating to see how you guys are figuring out to monetize your creative talents in today's day and age. And I'm seeing more and more and more of it, and it really is encouraging. So going to leave it there for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and hope to see you on a future broadcast.